Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, government promises to immediately clear all 5 outstanding coupons owed pensioners. The Ministry of Finance also has agreed to pay all outstanding principals in 2 weeks. Also coming up, the World Bank to review future use of financial guarantee to support Ghana's borrowings, a move expected to check the country's rising debt levels.
With the reform in place, we've readjusted our pipeline, our list of projects coming to factor in this budget support. It will be a 3-year program for $300 million each, totaling $900 million over 3 years.
And a finance expert suggests 5 to 7 year fiscal program, saying it's viable for an effective economic turnaround. We'll hear more from Professor Williams Pepra, who says the 3-year IMF program is not enough.
The 3 years is too short a time to see all the programs or all the things we want to implement. It's too short and it's too drastic. So if we have done the 5 to 7 year program, then you have enough time to implement the programs gradually.
Mr. Daryl, thanks for being with us. Details coming up. We begin with news coming in this afternoon. Government has promised to immediately clear all 5 outstanding coupons owed pensioners. In a meeting with the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, the Ministry of Finance also agreed to pay all outstanding principals in 2 weeks. The Finance Ministry has scheduled another meeting with the Pensioner Bondholders Forum to convince them to back down on their call for interest payment on all accrued principals. Take a listen to convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, Dr. Ahodwo Market Dispute.
Going to pay the outstanding coupons immediately. So 5 coupons are outstanding. Those coupons are going to be paid immediately. On the principal,
if they say immediately, what does that mean?
They will start the arrangement from today. So we believe by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we would have seen it. For the principal, the ministry is asking for 2 weeks to pay all the outstanding principals. The first one is outstanding for 102 days now. So principals that has been outstanding from February 20th up to 29th May, they are going to pay that within 2 weeks. We were asking for interest on the delayed principals since we needed that money to reinvest and get our return on our investment for our sustenance. The ministry is pleading that we forgive the interest. We consider the interest, and we have said that we can't give any answer to the minister now, the deputy minister now. So we have agreed that Thursday, the bigger group will meet and hear the ministry, and if they are able to convince the wider group that we should accept the zero interest for the delayed payment, then we take it from there. And they are going to give us a plan for the payment of subsequent maturities and subsequent coupons. And if that plan comes out, we will be using that plan to test whether government is following the plan. If the government doesn't follow it, then of course we would decide what to do next.
Which means that Thursday you picket. Are you picketing or not? And does it mean that all of you are going into that meeting?
We have told the minister or the deputy minister that instead of meeting here, we will come and meet there. So we will come, but we will go into their conference room and have the discussions with them.
Now, the World Bank has indicated that it might review future use of its financial guarantee for Ghana's borrowings. The bank in April was forced to make about $372 million coupon payments on Ghana's 2030 Eurobonds. This was after the country defaulted on payments for the 2030 bond issued in 2015. Country Director of the World Bank, Pierre Laporte, tells Joy Business this could be a measure to help check the country's rising debt stock.
Up to now, we've only been doing project support, which is in line with what our partnership framework. But with the reform in place, we've readjusted our pipeline, our list of projects coming, to factor in this budget support. It will be a 3-year program for $300 million each, totaling $900 million over 3 years. And we expect, because the fund program will overlap the year after, we will put another 250. So we will put over the 4 years about 1.1 billion. I'll come back to that. Then, because of the effects of the fiscal consolidation, we've also brought in early on additional financing for social protection of 150 million, which is going to the board this month. So this will come early. Our budget support will come in the second half of the year. But we've also brought in a financial sector support project, as you know, with the domestic restructuring of debt, domestic debt. These have impacted the banks. The capital adequacy have been hit. And, as we speak, most banks, if not all, are probably below the capital adequacy requirement. And we are bringing in $250 million in emergency financial support project to help central bank and government cushion the impact on the banks of liquidity, and we're focusing mostly on solvency issues. But I want to make an important point. We will continue to deliver our regular projects. For instance, now in this month, we will bring an agriculture diversification project to the board for $200 million. We will also bring additional financing of 150 for Greater Accra Resilience Project. So we will continue to do our regular work.
Let me try and focus on the budget support program thing, and that about $900 million. Is that also before the board? When are we hoping that we could be getting the first tranche? Will that be dependent on, just like the IMF program, meeting some conditions or prior actions to ensure that those disbursements come in? Can you update us on that one, please?
Absolutely. Our plan, our hope, is we can bring this to the board by September. But it will all depend how fast we reach agreement with government on the prior actions. It may be September, it may slip in October, but we're hoping. We need to do it this year because IMF has factored into its financing gap. You know, when IMF goes to the board, if there's a gap, they cannot go. So they factored in 300 million from the World Bank. But this 300 million, I want to be very clear, it's not acquired, it's not given, it's not taken that World Bank will come and give. We need to have a strong reform package from government that accompanies as prior actions for us to deliver this 300 million. And these have to be in areas where us and government agree. These areas that have caused problems for the budget or for the sectors. For instance, I cannot go in all the details because we are still talking, but where we feel we want to intervene in 4 pillars. One is the whole aspect of domestic revenue mobilization, which IMF also has some aspects because, you know, as we all know, Ghana's revenue GDP ratio is quite low, and we're hoping to accompany IMF reforms, government reforms to raise revenues. And there's a whole aspect around fiscal management, PFM, expenditure management. So we'll look at all these aspects.
Now, Associate Professor of Finance at the Andrews University in the U.S., Williams Kwesi says Ghana's 36-month extended credit facility deal with the International Monetary Fund is inadequate to make any significant economic impact. He says the conditionality and policy demands from the IMF to mitigate Ghana's fiscal and debt vulnerabilities are drastic and demand a long-term approach. According to him, a 5 to 7 year fiscal program is viable for an effective financial turnaround. Clinton Yeboah has more in this report.
Williams Kwesi of the Andrews University School of Business Administration, USA, was speaking at a public lecture on the IMF bailout at the Christian Service University College in Kumasi. The public lecture was themed, Ghana, the fallen angel shall rise, lessons from the IMF bailout. The lecture was staged to extricate the blame that academia is quiet and not contributing its quota to national discourse. Professor Williams Kwesi asserts the IMF deal would ensure stability and financial discipline of the government's financial behavior.
I'm recommending that every government should have some form of plug-in to IMF in the form of IMF monitoring our operations. when IMF is around like a policeman, we tend to do the right thing, especially with our own document we have submitted to IMF. We are trying to be more disciplined. So in that case, it is prudent, and history has shown us that anytime we have IMF in our governance system, our inflation rate reduces, and that is what we are entreating. If inflation drops, your economy becomes stable, businesses will be able to go on well, employment will increase. The implementation program will have to be in a long-term form. The 3 years is too short a time to see all the programs or all the things we want to implement. It's too short and it's too drastic. So if we have done the 5 to 7 year program, then you have enough time to implement the programs gradually. From the document given by government, by the time the program ends in 2026, our debt to GDP ratio is expected to be around 76%. We will still not be financially sustained, or we have to still go in for another program.
The IMF extended credit facility of $3 billion was approved by the Executive Board on May 17th this year. The program will support Ghana in creating conditions for inclusive and sustainable growth. Sections of Ghanaians have real concerns about harsh conditionalities for Ghana's deal with the IMF. Professor in Finance at the KNUST School of Business, Professor Joseph Magnus Frimpong, says Ghana's wasteful behavior is responsible for the seeming harsh conditions. He adds to the call for the government to review free SHS policy.
If they are harsh, you would think they are harsh because you are going for a loan at your personal level. If you know a friend of yours who is wasteful, okay, and he's coming to you for a loan, what will you do? You may not give it to him, but even if you give it to him, you make sure he doesn't use it to smoke. Wasteful, yeah, if you are not wasteful, we wouldn't be where we are. I don't see the solution coming easily because we have also been polarized by this NDC MPP. There's so much expenditure on this PHSS because we want equality. Equality is a myth. It doesn't exist. No matter what you do, when they vacate, they go to different homes. So you cannot enforce equality, but you can enforce equity, where everybody must be given a fair chance.
Reporting for JoyNews, Clinton.
Tension has heightened at Ahodwo in the Ashanti region as traders vow to prevent a private developer from allegedly taking over a market space. The traders claim they have been served notice to evacuate the market for the private developer who lays claim to the space. Now, after 40 years of occupying the space, the traders are unwilling to leave the area. Anaya Ojima has more in the following report.
The traders, clad in red bands, chanted war songs to communicate readiness to fight any individual who attempts to forcefully evict them. They claim to have been allocated the land in 1948 after petitioning the Town and Country Planning Department for a plot of land to trade. According to the traders, the city authorities reached an agreement with the then owner of the land to cede part to the community market. Former assembly member for the area, Abraham Bwedi, explained.
They also recommended that the late Mr. Ohina Jekum 2 guys lease be withdrawn. In pursuant to that above recommendation, a team comprising Kandel, Opuni Mensah, the then KMA Chief Executive, Mr. Daniel Ohina Jekum, the then Regional Minister, Ahonjo community leaders, and the late Mr. Ohina Jekum, 2 guys, came to a gentleman agreement on the said land, Plot 37, Block I. It was divided into 2. A and B, and the late Mr. Ohina Jekum took the bigger portion, leaving the other to Ahonjo community.
Litigation over the ownership of the land has since continued. The new private developer laying claim to the property is preparing the grounds for construction, but the community is bent on halting the development.
We wish to record here that even though the people of Ahonjo community are not violent, but we will not sit down, so we will not sit down for such things to happen to us. So we are, by this above emerged facts wish to appeal to Otumfuo Tutu II Asantehene to come to our assistance.
At the time of Love News visit, some persons believed to be private security men had pitched camp on the land. Traditional leadership of the community has denied selling the land to the developer, though they say he had approached them to express interest. Kwawu Ananebuadu speaks for the family.
Abusiano, you see a whole market. You pay market no any community center.
The family says the place is a market and we want it to remain so. We want a community center built there as well. Even if the private developer is able to get the right authorities for the land to be released, we want him to build a market and a community center to compensate the community on part of the land.
Now, Omo the assassino amani dia yenini ni hu manson sembia ka ene sei ochina sei na mom edwana ye pene de any community center no onsi mai.
Meanwhile, the private developer will not react to the agitation. For JoyNews, Nana Ochima, Kumasi.
From the Ahodwo Market to the KJTR Market, where flooding after torrential rains destroyed goods worth thousands of Ghana cedis. Affected traders blame the flooding on devastation caused by a recent fire outbreak. Leadership of the market wants government to start immediate renovation. There's more in the following report.
The traders had their wares floating after the downpour. Traders at where the fire gutted months ago are mostly affected. Flood victims were seen cleaning and counting their losses. They want pipes at that section of the market fixed to avoid any future occurrence. This flooding incident occurred. Few months ago, this place was on fire. There have been no maintenance works by the management of the facility. The pipes are all leaking. The place gets flooded anytime it rains.
The fire incident destroyed the pipes, so anytime it rains, there is leakage.
Operations manager for the KJTR Traders Association, Ahmed Kwatin, wants management of the facility to start proper maintenance. The market needs some consistent renovation. Just after the downpour yesterday, everything got destroyed. They need to be doing some renovation. But anytime we talk about renovation, management says they are under-resourced. For JoyNews, Nana Boachi Dankwayadom reporting.
Now, did you know you are abusing chickens if you restrict their movement by confining them in cages? Well, traditionally in Ghana, most poultry reared for their eggs and meat are usually kept in battery cages. Emmanuel Kwawu reports on how cage farming affects poultry growth and production as activists and vets demand a ban on battery cages.
Selling poultry has been a source of livelihood for Achama for nearly a decade now. As one of the sole vendors at the Ahodwo Market, she sources her animals from various farms in and around the Ashanti region. The live birds, upon arriving from the farm, are kept in her makeshift cage on the streets of the market.
Some of the hens, especially the white ones, aren't active. Theirs is just to eat and to drink water.
Chicken production rose from 20.5 million to to 74.5 million over the last 2 decades, of which more than 25 million are reportedly housed in traditional battery cages in Ghana. Conventionally in Ghana, poultry commercially reared for their meat and eggs are confined in cages. Abna Kwedu, also a vendor, believes the restricted animals are rarely infested with diseases.
It's not good to leave them to walk about. They can be infested with diseases. You only need to feed them and they will be okay.
At the just ended Say No to Cages workshop held in Kumasi, veterinarians and some poultry farmers advocated a ban on battery cages. The Animal Welfare League, a not-for-profit organization, believes caging the animals affects their welfare. Director of the association, Dr. Daniel Abiliba, says it is an abuse to keep poultry in restrictive cages.
Imagine you living your life, your entire life, 52 weeks or more in a sheet of paper. The space that is allowed to you is an A4 sheet of paper. In battery cages and all forms of factory farming that uses restrictive housing system, these animals are being abused, and as consumers, what do you call it? We need to also be worried about where our animals are coming from.
Aside from the torture the caged animals are subjected to, veterinary doctor Dr. Emmanuel Piru says caging contributes to the growing record of antibacterial resistance in the poultry industry.
When you keep birds also in the battery cage system, they are prone to diseases, and those diseases example are osteoporosis and egg layer fatigue. All these are examples of diseases that the birds in the cage system go through. And why this is even more important is that when birds in this system go through, they are sick, what we tend to do is to use antibiotics to give to the birds. And this is also part of one of the reasons that is causing antimicrobial resistance, which is a big problem globally, where our antibiotics are no more becoming effective.
Presently, Ghana has no legislation banning the use of battery cages. Only 6 countries, including the European Union and US, across the globe have imposed bans on battery cages in poultry farming. The group is preparing to lay a petition before Parliament for the adoption of cage-free farming.
We've launched a petition called the Ban the Battery Cages in Ghana. At the moment we are gathering signatories to present to Parliament and government to to consider banning any forms of cages in the country. So we honestly think the government, when we call upon, we come to their door knocking that they should ban cages, they should be willing to listen and then act accordingly.
A survey conducted in Accra, Ghana revealed 47.6% of respondents preferred free-range eggs to eggs produced by hens in confined conditions. CEO of Boris B Chicken, Boris Baidu, says free-range eggs are nutritious and thus advocates the adoption of cage-free farming.
Because of the, greens around that the birds also consume. The parameters of the eggs, if you look at them, it's all better and it tastes even more better. So when you go to Europe, you can see that we have the free-range eggs even more expensive than the cages ones. We as an association are going to carry it on. We are also going to continue. Just to let people know how important it is. Because I think I started some years back talking to people to refrain from the cages, because cages is not a way to go.
For JoyNews, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
That's interesting. Well, let's move on to other news. The U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, has commended technology firm Zipline for completing 370,000 deliveries of medical supplies that benefited over 25 million Ghanaians in just 4 years of existence. Zipline, which now operates 6 distribution centers across the country, first launched its operations as a medical drones service delivery firm in 2019. Here's more in this report.
With 27 drones and an average of 95 deliveries in a day, Zipline, which started its operations in 2019, now supplies 2,700 health facilities in hard-to-reach communities with over 5 million units of life-saving medical supplies such as vaccines and blood. Marking its 4th year anniversary on Thursday, June 1, the manager of health systems at Zipline, Kwesi Entry, touched on strict operational processes from observance of personal hygiene at the facility through shelving of drugs and vaccines, processing of orders to how the drones are finally launched for delivery. General Manager of Zipline Ghana, Mauli Atiemo, noted the company would continue to expand its services through strategic partnerships.
Since our launch in April 2019, the partnership has made significant strides in revolutionizing the healthcare sector in Ghana. Our cutting-edge drone technology has enabled us to deliver essential medical supplies, including COVID-19 immunizations, blood products, animal health commodities, and other health-saving drugs to 2,700 health facilities throughout the country. To date, Zipline has completed an impressive 370,000 deliveries of medical products, blood supplies, vaccines, and animal health commodities. We continue to leverage on our cutting-edge technology to enhance our logistic capabilities and forge new partnerships to reach even more communities and ensure no one is left behind.
Speaking at the event, the Deputy Minister of Health, Asesini, said the partnership between Zipline and the Ministry of Health is a shining example worth extending to other sectors.
Through this partnership, we have made Ghana a global leader in the use of drones for medical logistics. We must, as a nation, begin to look at the capacities of unmanned aerial vehicles extending beyond healthcare and ways to solve problems in other industries.
Excited at Zipline's impact in 4 years, especially during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. Ambassador, Virginia Palmer, noted bilateral arrangements are in place between Ghana and the U.S. aimed at scaling up access to quality healthcare for all.
None of us imagined the COVID vaccine or the COVID pandemic when Zipline was being founded. And the tremendous impact you made in getting those vaccines out to people so that they could resume their ordinary lives is enormous. The United States government is working with you to build on these successes. The U.S. Trade and Development Agency signed a grant with Zipline earlier this year to fund a feasibility study to develop the infrastructure for the rapid delivery via drones of medicine and commercial goods across Ghana and West Africa.
All right, that's our program this afternoon. Thanks for watching, everyone. You can keep up to date on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. You can read more about the interview granted by the country director of the World Bank to Georgia. Ghana likely to receive first tranche of $300 million by September. myjoyonline.com/business. Enjoy your weekend.